You just pressed play on the Last Breath Huntcast, home of the Huntroversy. We're here to entertain, educate, and engage. And in case you didn't know, you only live once. But if you do it right, once is enough. Don't waste it. Welcome to episode number 117 of the Last Breath Huntcast, home of the Huntroversy. As always, our podcast is presented by Badlands Gear. Very excited, very proud to be working with them. We actually have a 30% off discount with them site-wide. Anything that you want, they got it. If you hop into the Last Breath Inner Circle, which is our Facebook group, we will hook you up with that code. That is for those people in there that support us, and we like to help them out by saving them, in this case, a lot of money, about 30% off. Our podcast is also presented by Outdoor Edge Gear. LBTV25, all uppercase with 25 there at the end, will get you 25% off site-wide of anything outdoor edge-related products, whether it's a knife sharpening tool, a gut hook. So for all of you guys that want a really lightweight replaceable blade knife to take with you into the field this summer, or this fall, you can get one of their knives, and sharpening it is as easy as 1, 2, 3, deploying a button, putting a replacement blade in, and you have a new surgically sharp knife. Underwarmer is the third partner of our podcast. Using the code LASTBREATH with a capital L, a capital B, and the space in the middle, they actually have a great deal for you. So an underwarmer is a heated base layer system with 4 large heating pads on the front, 4 large heating pads on the back. And it's compression fitted. It fits over your torso, keeps you extremely warm. They're about $10.99 on their website. We have a coupon that gets you $8 off. So using the code again, Last Breath with a capital L, a capital B, and the space in the middle, will get you $8 off your order. So you can literally get one of these for $3 on their website right now. Finally, using the code LastBreath20CB, all uppercase, will get you anything that your heart's desire on codeblue.com, specifically Gravedigger. This is Grant speaking. Right next to me is...
It's your boy, Garrett. We can't leave out Mr. Wayne Tompkins with the new season coming out. Not necessarily, Wayne is a partner of all of us, and we're happy to be working with him. But this year, BAR21, if you are in the area, you were lucky enough to harvest a deer this year that you would like to preserve and put on your wall forever, BAR21 gets you front of the line pass, gets you a $50 discount on your mount, and you'll be able to pick it up at our annual launch party. BAR stands for Big Ass Rack, in case anybody was wondering. So Wayne, Michael, and I came up with that the other day, and we're excited for the new season. Homie's already tapping into that. He put a beautiful deer on the ground opening day with Jesse.
On public ground.
Legendary. Pretty damn amazing. Me and you have never had an opportunity to kill a deer opening day. A buck, nope. I should say, opening day. And it's quite amazing. So we're not going to take away from their podcast, our sister podcast, Whitetail Legacy Podcast. You can listen to that story here very soon. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't come out this week, if not next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, Grant speaking here. Garrett, that was the one that was just talking. A couple people messaged me in the other day and said, you should say your names from now on so that way people know who you are. I said, yeah, that's probably a pretty good idea. So our topic, if you noticed in the introduction to our podcast here, this is the home of the Huntroversy. And we have not done a Huntroversial style episode since number 108 when Pete and I discussed the hardest state to whitetail hunt. Lots of interesting data that we looked in episode number 107 and 108. We did it in 2 parts. So our topic tonight for our Huntroversy, this is going to be a very interesting one, especially given the time of the year. In fact, this just happened to you and I literally last night as we were sleeping. We had been talking back and forth. We talk every day for probably anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour and a half. And every day we have the discussion on the way to or from work that's, all right, when are our big couple hitless deer going to start walking in daylight, when they're going to be coming. So our Huntroversial topic for tonight is to share or not to share trail camera photos and why. So before we get into this, let's hear your off-the-cuff thoughts on that. What side are you leaning more towards for this one?
Probably more towards the side of sharing, I would say. That's just a general answer. As we dive into it, I'll kind of explain more of the answer, but I don't think as a rule of thumb every trail camera picture you should share. But I think generally speaking, specifically about your neighbors, there's more to benefit from sharing your photos than there are not. And more importantly, I guess right off the cusp, I don't know how sharing a trail camera picture of a buck or a deer or anything that you get for that matter with a neighbor is going to affect your ability to kill a deer. Can it? Maybe. Do I think it's going to be the cursor of whether you kill that deer or not, or your neighbor kills that deer or not? Whether you shared a trail camera picture with him? Probably not.
That's a good point. I mean, we've certainly done it in the past. I'm kind of right there in the middle. I think there's scenarios in which it's a smart idea. I think that sometimes, though, oversharing can be a bad idea. And I would say, going back to your point that you just said, that if you share a trail camera picture of a buck with a guy next door, a neighboring property, I think that it could affect your hunt if, there's a person, not necessarily you, but anyone's hunt that's sharing a trail camera photo. I mean, I do think it could affect where your neighbor's sitting at in accordance with your fence line, in accordance with where he thinks that picture was taken. So, I mean, I agree to disagree with you a little bit there. I do think it could affect your hunt based upon the neighbor that you have, whether or not they're courteous or whether or not they just don't give a shit and are going to go at all costs and ride a fence line or go try to patrol the area where they think the picture that you got of the deer came from, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense. And I mean, I do think that a very large majority of people that hunt kind of have this notion that the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. I don't know why that is. We were guilty of this when we were younger, but it just seems like fence lines and property lines are hot spots for deer stands and deer blinds. The thing where I come from, seeing the benefit more or less, and it also, like you alluded to, depends on the mentality of your neighbor and the goals of your neighbor, etc.
Yeah.
But let's hope. This deer we got a picture of last night. Beautiful, we believe to be 4-year-old deer. Mm-hmm. Found a shed last year, and to be honest with the listeners, we were pretty disappointed in it. He looked very nice on trail camera. We picked up the shed. He was much shorter beamed and way lower in mass than what we had expected. Mm-hmm. Immediately threw him into the 3-year-old category last year. And this year, he looks good. He's progressed some. He hasn't made an explosive jump or anything. He's just a really, I would consider a nice deer. His brow tines are above average, but they're not 10-inch, holy crap, brow tines.
They're like 6-ish.
Yep. And so for me, sharing a picture with our neighbor and saying, hey, we got this deer, just so you know, not telling you what you can and can't kill, but he's off the hit list for us because we really think he's got a chance to turn into something nice. Make that jump from 145 to 165, 170.
Yep.
That's where I think the benefit really lies in sharing photos with your neighbors. And again, it depends if your goals are in line with theirs, etc. But something along that lines is where I see the bigger benefit, because then you can have some peace of mind if they agree wow, that is a really nice deer. We actually have him on camera too, which for the most part, the deer that we get on trail camera, our neighbors are going to get.
Yeah.
We're
as do 90% of the people that are listening to this podcast. Like any average Joe that's hunting on permission or hunting on even a farm that you bought, you're not going to house a deer for the entirety of its life.
No, not even close. I mean, especially the farm that we're hunting, it's
going to cross property lines thousands of times in its lifetime.
And we know that this deer has anyway in the past, just from seeing sightings from the road, etc. So, that guy, if he thinks your property is going to be better to hunt for some whatever reason, he's going to hunt your fence line anyway. Will a trail camera maybe photo make him? I don't know.
Right.
If I'm a deer hunter and I have pictures of a deer, and then my neighbor sends me pictures of the same deer, that doesn't make me automatically want to sit on the fence row. It just makes me want to hunt smarter, personally, if it's a targeted deer.
Yeah. I think too, it's kind of interesting, and it's not really our mindset, but I know a couple people that hold their trail camera pictures really, really close to their chests, and we'll talk about in a minute whether or not we think the caliber of deer has anything to influence that. Because I know if Matt was sitting in the room with us right now, that Matt shares trail camera pictures, back and forth with some people, but when he's got a really, really big deer to hunt, he prefers it to not be known and prefers it for no one to know that it exists, if that makes sense. And I think a lot of people are in that camp where they'll be cordial and possibly share information about their, trail camera photos with their neighbor in that sense. But when there's a really, really, really big deer, like book-worthy deer kind of thing, that maybe they're more tentative on sharing those pictures. So let's dive in specifically into the benefits. So big benefit number one, I think the greatest benefit of all of sharing a trail camera photo with your neighbor, especially if their management goals aren't quite the same as what yours are, and the goal that you have for shooting a deer isn't the same. I think the biggest benefit is if you're a trail camera user and you have, 5, 10, 15 trail cameras out, and they either don't have any or they have very few, that you could alert them and say, hey, here's an inventory. I know that this 3-year-old buck is going to look really tasty when he comes walking by in October or early November, but here's what you could kill if you hold off on killing this 2-year-old, this 3-year-old buck, and just let them make it another age class, another year. I think that's the biggest benefit, is just kind of say, here's what's out there, to put it in their brain and saying, oh, okay, you're going to make them think twice a little bit harder about shooting that, lesser caliber of deer. And if they want to shoot that lesser caliber deer, that's okay. It's their tag. That's their freedom, whatever. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. What I am saying is most people, like we've talked about this before, if there's a doe out in a field and there's a buck out in the field and they're 20 yards both feeding, and let's say they're each, and I know this is kind of a stretch of, what reality, but let's say that they're both, for all intents and purposes, the same weight. So let's say they're both 180 to 200 pounds. Mm-hmm. And you get the same amount of meat off of both.
I know where you're going.
Most people will shoot the buck. So I think that's the benefit of sharing trail camera.
My devil's advocate thing about this is that, first off, I don't know a single hunter now that doesn't have trail cameras. It's a normality, I think, of whitetail hunting across a very large majority of the Midwest. All the Midwest.
I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I do have a really interesting group. Ironically, you ran into this group 2-ish years ago, I think, in the southern part of Illinois, Amish. So this was specifically talking about guy that hunted near Amish guys, and that they just kind of don't abide by many DNR laws at all. No. And they just kind of throw caution to the wind and say, fuck it. Well, he shares it with these Amish folk, so that way they're aware of what's out there, because they legitimately don't have any trail cameras, which I thought that was pretty interesting. And I listened to that on...
And that's a good topic, because it goes against their religion, their modernization.
Yeah,
they don't even believe in photography. So that's a fraction. I mean,
that's a fraction.
But I'm talking to people that are listening to our podcast, because the Amish aren't.
Right, sure.
So Walter and I don't know who else.
Jebediah.
Yeah, aren't tapping into the Huntcast.
Sure.
But so what I'm getting to is that most hunters, I think that 99% of most modern day whitetail hunters, even our father-in-law has trail cameras now, cellular cameras, right?
Yeah.
And he's in his 60s, so I think that there's a lot of people that have cameras. I think that you're probably not going to change the mindset of a hunter by showing him that there's a big deer. Like,
really?
I do not. I think if you have that guy that has never killed a 130-inch deer before in his life, like a big 2 standard 3-year-old, mm-hmm. right? And you show him a picture of, hey, we've got this really nice mature mid-60s, maybe 175-year-old that you could kill.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to make him pass the biggest deer of his life at the time, being that beautiful 3-year-old, because he thinks that this other one might come out.
Sure.
I don't see that happening. Maybe. Probably not.
I thought going along with that, though, in terms of age, like I would say that the majority of neighbors aren't kids. There's kids around. There's
we don't need kids. Think of some of the neighbors that we have.
You know what I'm saying?
We have grown-ass men that haven't killed an 8-point.
Exactly.
As neighbors.
And
that's okay.
Yeah, whatever. But I think that, you're right in that regard, where if their standards are completely different than you, I guess what I'm saying is, if you've got your run-of-the-mill, hunter, that doesn't run a whole lot of trail cameras, that's not in the woods a whole ton, that not necessarily know, they know what deer are in the area, but they not maybe know every single deer. Maybe one or two slipped through the nets somewhere, slipped through the crack on them. So I think it would be valuable in that regard. But I think it's a benefit to share that with them. But I could also see, I've listened to stories where people leak a trail camera photo of a really big deer, and you've got these guys that'll legitimately go to the nth degree to kind of sit, ride a fence line, go over fence lines, stuff like that. Real scary shit, like illegal shit,
Yeah.
And that's kind of what worries me. But in all intents and purposes, most hunters are in between 20 and 60 years old, and I think most people, once they get $5-10 under their belt, are kind of in the class that we're in, where they're like, okay, I'm looking for a buck. To what degree of largeness that buck is kind of up to them. But I think most people, when they look at truly what their goal is for the season, other than putting meat in the freezer, I think it's killing a buck with good antlers on it.
I agree. I guess I don't see how somebody's going to get enough information off of one photo to be able to calculate and make a decision on how to hunt it. And I know where Matt's coming from. He's been that way for a long time. Your neighbors aren't going to change year over year. And Matt hunts property similar in size to ours. Like, your neighbors have pictures of that deer. They know it exists. Like, if your fear is of sharing a picture and it getting out and then somebody trying to buy the property that you're hunting on or what, like, I feel that potential's there.
Sure.
If you kill the deer, because we're going to take pictures of it and show it.
Regardless,
right?
Yeah. The potential for them to discover that the deer was there is there regardless.
The genetics are there, that age class is there, that trophy caliber is there, similar to like the Pike County syndrome. Why ground is more expensive down there, leases are more expensive down there, there's more pressure down there. It's because it has that tone of trophy with it. You know what I mean? Like, whether it's a trail camera picture or a harvest picture. And for anybody
that's out of state listening to this podcast right now, Pike County, Pike, Southwest, that is the best county to hunt in Illinois. You're going to want to really go all chips on the table. Whenever you go for an outfitter, go there.
No, stop. Whenever that's bad advice. That's bad advice.
No, I'm just being facetious and kind of joking. But, yeah,
I guess here's my thing. Like, I look at it this way, and I know I'm weird. I'm different than a lot of people. But let's say the neighbor comes and he goes, hey, man, we got a really big one in the area. Oh, no kidding. Yeah, here he is. Like, and it's a 200-inch deer, we'll say. Sure. Whoa, holy shit.
Right.
Like, does that motivate me to jump the fence and do something illegal? No. Does that motivate me to sit closer to his property? No. What that does is it motivates me to be a better hunter, because if I don't have him on camera and he's my neighbor, my cameras either aren't in the right spot or I'm doing something wrong.
Yep.
And again, I do understand that eventually a deer's home range is going to be a line. Is it a fence? Probably not. But eventually at some point in time, yeah, your neighbor's going to have pictures of deer that you aren't. But then that being said, if that deer's range is on the fence row, it doesn't affect your ability to kill him. Because if you're on the extreme end of one of his territories or one of his ranges, you're not going to get him to come over to you no matter what, because you're on the edge.
Right.
You're on the boundary. It's pretty much a brick wall. Like, so I don't know. I get it. And I'll be honest, do I want to go out and say, hey, here's our hit list to the neighbors? No, I don't. But if it comes up in conversation, I'm probably going to try to take an opportunity like, hey, yeah, these are the deer that we're after. We know that they're this old. And more importantly, these are the deer we aren't after. But at the end of the day, like I said, if your neighbor's not sharing the same mindset of like, okay, I'm hunting this type of age class, or I want this type of caliber of deer, it's, I don't know, because the novice deer hunter, quote unquote, I don't want to come across as condescending or bigoted here, but like, not necessarily a threat to my 5.5. Killing a 5.5-year-old deer is fucking hard. There's some luck involved, don't get me wrong, and I'll take any luck I can get, but like, doing that a year after year after year after year, even if your neighbor's got trail camera pictures of them or not, is not something that you can just do.
Yeah.
But I'll agree, like with Matt, like it also is kind of one of those things like, man, he probably has camera pictures of this deer. but I still don't want to allude to it. And that's why,
Right.
And that's why, I mean, how many of your neighbors, and like think of our neighbors, how many of our neighbors have shown us pictures of big deer? You want to know how many? 0. They'll show us pictures of good deer,
Right.
but never like the deer, you
Sure.
know,
Yeah.
that we know, me and you both know, cross the properties, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
And again, it's given the size of the property we want. A deer is not going to live his entire life in 40 acres, 60 acres, 80 acres. Not going to happen. Period. The end. Never will
Not his
happen.
entire life. He could roam outside of that, and then his quarry could shrink when he's older. But
Yeah.
they're going to be all over hell for many
From
years.
3
of
to
that.
5, dude. He's
Yep.
got a big area.
He's going to be rambling, gambling man. So
yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. Trust me, and I'm sitting here saying that I'd share pictures, and I will, but it's like,
And we do share pictures with our neighbors to be fully transparent. We've got a person that's retired that shares one border with us who's killed a lot of big deer in his lifetime. And, we swap trail camera pictures with him. And then another property that we hunt, we share pictures with a guy that hunts across the fence from it, who I think is a pretty good dude, seems to be anyway. And we share back and forth with him. And another area, we don't really know anybody that hunts adjacent because it's a lot of ag. So we just there's really nowhere for deer to go unless they make a long trek. So we don't really have too many ties in that area. So we don't share too much, I guess, because we don't have the opportunity to. But let's go ahead and get into the downfalls of sharing a trail camera picture. I wanted to note one more benefit, and I think it's not necessarily the picture itself. I think it's the gesture. Like when you offer up a trail camera picture, you're being cordial with your neighbor. You're saying, hey, man, we're playing on the same team here. And I think that opens the door for more avenues down the road that could potentially arise. Case in point, if you're hunting a small tract of land, it's your deer. If you shoot one, it's probably, especially if it's a marginal shot, it's probably going to cross the fence line at some point. And what better of a way to kind of have that door open already to your neighbor than saying, hey, man, we had a deer that jumped the fence, or we had a deer that we think died right over here on your property. You mind if we go retrieve them? And if you shared trail camera pictures in the past and just did the gesture, not like I said, the pictures aside, it's just the gesture, then I think that could open potential doors for you in the future to just have a good relationship with your neighbor. Because, not us necessarily, but we've had some people that are friends with us who've had really shitty neighbors, like, yeah, you can't go over there, fuck you, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I would never want to be in that scenario. So I think sharing pictures is just a kind gesture to form up a better relationship with somebody who has the same mindset and has the same passion as you do, to kind of open that door up for any future conflict.
Yeah, I
if it
agree.
happens.
That's a great point.
So the downfalls, though, I feel like one of the downfalls with sharing a picture is the potential feel to kind of overshare. Like, okay, we're swapping back and forth here, and now that's kind of becoming expected. You wouldn't want to condition your neighbor necessarily to say, oh, every time blah, blah, blah gets a picture, he's going to send it to me, and I know. You wouldn't necessarily want to do that. But can you think of any more downfalls of sharing a trail camera photo?
I mean, you covered them pretty well, in the sense of like, all right, if you enlighten your neighbor of a deer that's in the area, you risk the chance of let's say for the Huntroversy intensive purposes, they don't know it exists. They have no idea this buck exists. And you say, hey, we got this really good one on camera. Here he is. Whether he's on your hit list or not is irrelevant.
Yep.
What matters is it on his hit list, right? Because
Yeah.
now let's say this deer, whether it's 4 to 8 years old, is on this guy's hit list now. He didn't know it exists, and now it's there. I think you run the risk of amping him up, right? Maybe before this he's been kind of down in the dumps. He's had a couple bad hunts, didn't have a lot of success. I think you have the ability to fuel their desire to hunt, which inevitably increases their opportunities to kill the deer that you are hunting or have a picture of. I think that's my biggest number one concern. Whether they're going to sit on the fence row or not, dude, they're like,
that's a hell of a good point.
Grass is always greener. They're going to do it whether they think you have the picture or not. I think, we've ran into those neighbors that are literally on the fence row. Like, you can't fit another tree in between them.
So what you're saying is,
I feel like you have the ability to spark interest again. You know, the guy that's like happy-go-lucky, and there's tons of them, and we love you all. Like, hunting is not an equal playing field in regards to that. Neither is any aspect of anything in life.
Sure.
Freaking paintball. You got the people that come out and rent gear, and then you got dumbasses like me that spend a ton of money and like
get the good stuff.
I'm going to shoot you in the face. So with hunting, I feel like you have that ability to spark them, right? Like, oh wow, thanks, this is cool. I haven't had any big deer yet. Like, it's really neat that he's around, and you have that ability to then increase their hunting. You know, and like I said, the more you hunt, typically the more chances of opportunity, etc. I think that's the number one biggest threat of sharing trail camera pictures. But I think you kind of know the neighbor before you share that.
Right.
You know, you kind of, even before this conversation comes up at trail camera pictures, you've had exchanges. You know the deer that they've probably killed. I mean, the world of social media. You've freaking scalped his Facebook like a crazy ex-girlfriend. You know, like you're seeing what deer he's killed. Is it with a gun or was it with a bow? You know,
what regularity?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then, so by the time it comes to this exchange of photos, you kind of know
what you're getting yourself into already.
Yeah. You know, so I don't know. Again, to me, if I got one picture of a deer from my neighbor, I don't know. That doesn't make me automatically have an opportunity to kill him. All it does is let me know that either, hey, that deer's traveling that far. Okay. Which that can help me. You know, I have no idea where this guy's trail camera's at, whether it's 20 yards on the property line or on the complete other opposite end of his property.
Right.
You know, so I'm guessing at that point now, I don't really have any type of consistent data to go off of, whether it's, you know, he's going south every day on a west wind or vice versa. And the only big thing that I would have to go off of is daylight or dark, you know?
Yeah.
And from there, I could get some information to further it. But, you know, one solitary photo of a deer is really hard to get a lot of knowledge to make for me. And maybe I'm just a shitty hunter, but, you know, I wouldn't be able to get enough data from one photo, not knowing anything else about where it was from or any of the above, to be like, okay, now I'm going to have a plan to kill this deer.
Sure. So you're saying even though it's a little piece of intel, it's so small that it's not necessarily going to play a big effect on the outcome of the end result.
Of me hunting that deer on my property?
No.
It could, like I said, it could tell me, okay, he's going this way on the neighbors, and maybe I didn't know that.
Maybe, yeah.
He's daylighted. Okay, maybe he's betting on the neighbors because all I have are nighttime pictures.
I think there are certain keys, and I want to bring up this because I just thought of it once you were saying, you know, your last point 2 points ago when you said it might ignite their interest to hunt, and I think a lot of that is huge, is pivotal. We've talked about it a lot of different times. I think the people that consistently get it done, when you strip it down to the base of hunting in general,
1 4-letter word
is time. And that's it. You know, most of the people that I know that are fair weather hunters, they'll get on a big one every 3, 4, 5 years. No doubt. Like, they'll kill a big one. No, for sure. But the people that I know that take long rutcations, that literally sit all day for as long as they can, I mean, those are the ones that are killing big deer consistently. Mm-hmm. Not saying that their neighbors and people around them aren't, but those people are doing it with the consistency. So I really liked what you said there about like igniting their interest, and you don't want to fire them up too much just because you're like, all right, if you want to be a couch potato today because it's raining and the conditions aren't super ideal for you, then by all means sit on your couch and we'll go kill this deer over here. So that kind of sparked an idea in my head, like, okay, I won't be able to gather enough information just based on one picture. And I want to push you on that a little bit, because doesn't matter what's in the photo. For example, we take one of the properties of the neighbors that we hunt, right? Mm-hmm. There's, on certain properties, you know, even here in Illinois, it's a big agricultural state, and certain properties there isn't any ag. So I know that if that property that my neighbor's hunting isn't adjacent to agriculture and they have a picture of a deer on ag that's obviously not us, I got an idea of where that deer could come from.
Sure.
I do think I have an idea based on like something like as black and white as that. Like, oh, this picture was taken on the edge of a cornfield on a scrape. Like, there are no cornfields on their property other than this one, so it must have come from down here. Let me look at the time now. Holy shit, 5:02 a.m. That sucks. That means that deer could potentially be bedding on their property or somewhere very close nearby to that food source. And I think you can glean stuff like that. So can you think of any more things kind of like what I'm saying, other than like structure in the background of a picture? You know, there's a spot on our farm where we hang a trail camera fairly consistently where there is structure that can be identified. And since then we've moved that camera. And can you think of any other things like that other than agricultural or like a structure that would identify a property? In your opinion, can you think of any? Those are the two that I can think of.
No, and you're 100% right. If there's a barn in the background or a road, I mean that's a telltale sign to give it away. And I think as you volunteering that photo, I mean, you understand what you're giving him.
Right.
When it comes to timber, though, man, I mean,
right. It's a crapshoot.
It's a crapshoot, and so again, I mean, we are on that very heightened level where we would overanalyze those photos, where I think probably a majority of the people that grab the picture would be starstruck by the antlers
and disregard all the little breadcrumb hints that are in the background.
Yeah, maybe not, but I don't know. I think the other one thing to think about when you're sharing photos with your neighbors is equal transparency. You know, like, hey, here are these 6 deer that we have, and be like, oh, cool, we only have these, and it's like, you know, are they holding their cards, kind of thing.
Yeah,
and you really don't have any way of knowing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, we've never seen this deer, when in all reality, you've got 7 freaking pictures of them in daylight the last 5 days.
Sure.
Yeah,
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. You don't know what their level of transparency, and that could be a downfall, you know?
Yeah, because then, you know, if you guys aren't being honest with each other, obviously somebody's going to benefit from that more than the other.
Sure.
So I think that's a potential negative, because if you are trying to cultivate the relationship, or maybe take the deer hunting in that block to the next level by trying to, you know, hey, let's have equal goals, you know, which are, I think that could be a whole nother Huntroversy, but I think the chances of you and your neighbors hunting the same deer herd all share the same goal is very minimal. And the reason for that is just, you know, there's party hunts, and you've got, you know, different youth hunts,
weapon,
so many
stage
factors.
In life, how many big bucks have they killed before?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I feel like that's almost not plausible. That you and your surrounding neighbors that hunt the same deer herd that you are going to share the same goals.
Yes.
I think over-encompassing goals, like you said, to shoot a big deer,
air quotes, like, big is relative.
Correct,
the term, right?
Correct. But like this age of deer, this caliber of deer, like understanding that, okay, this 5-year-old is really big right now, but he's got a 186-inch mainframe. It's going to be hard as hell to pass him, which we wouldn't probably right now.
We would not.
But like, if you let him go, we will have a 200-inch deer to hunt next year. You know what I mean? Like, that is just going to be hard. Going to be hard. So I don't know. To answer your question, I think it's a middle ground to get to the root of the Huntroversy. I don't think it's one of those things where you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. I feel like if you share a trail camera picture with your neighbor, as you said, it is a good gesture of faith. Like, hey,
it's a nicety.
Yep. And then you really have to tiptoe around about, like, how do you say if it's a deer that you want to make it? How do you delicately say, like, hey, you know, this is a nice deer. We're not going to kill him. Hopefully you don't either.
Right.
Because I am not in the camp of telling people what they can and can't kill. I don't care. Like, you bought the tag, you got permission, bought the property, paid the lease, etc. Like, you got just as much right to kill that deer as anybody else.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. Do I wince if you do? Yeah, but that's my opinion, and it's okay. You know, that I feel that way. And it's perfectly okay that you shot that deer too.
Right.
And introvert controversy, like if he shoots one of our big deer, like, damn it, that sucks. But
I think, though,
I'm glad
I would
you got
rather
that
have, hell yeah, I would rather, if you're a guy coming into the deer season, right, and you're kind of thinking about the same thing that we're thinking about, like to share, to not share, and you've got a couple big deer, you've got a couple good deer, and you've got a couple okay deer that are good young up and comers. I'm way more excited when a neighbor shoots the deer than the good deer, you know, like anybody had a odds to kill that's the hardest deer there is to kill in this country mile. You know, this deer's 5 or 6 years old. We've been trying to kill him for a year or two. We have failed. You got it done. Congratulations. Good for you. Good on you.
On to the next
This
one.
deer is the exact deer that needed to be taken out.
Right.
You know, this deer is the one, and I'm happy that you shot it, because I would rather have you shoot this one than a deer that doesn't align with what we're trying to do. So that one to me stings way less than like that badass 3-year-old that's like, you know, throwing some junk and's got a pretty good frame. Like that one stings less to me. But
so switching gears, and I don't know if this is on the itinerary or not, but I think, you know, we've covered neighbors, right? Be good to your neighbor. Hopefully they're good to you. You want to share pictures, that's great. I don't think it really sharing couple pictures. I'm talking not everyone, but a couple pictures probably isn't going to dictate whether you kill him or he kills him, the neighbor kills him. I think where you start getting into very dangerous ground with sharing photos, though, is when you share within your hunting party. And I'm talking about a hunting party where like me and you hunt the properties together. But there are properties, and we know people that like have different families that hunt the same property, or you know what I'm saying, specifically in gun season.
5, 10, 15 people, same property.
I think there it gets very muddy water, because you are hunting the same property now, and then
you're related. There's familial ties.
No, I'm not even talking about family. You know, there's plenty of people that we know that share ground, right?
Yeah.
And now it's not so much your neighbor as your co-hunter. You know, your hunting partner or party, and so like, that is where it gets very difficult to justify whether to do it or not, especially because you probably know them even better than you would your neighbor.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I don't know. Like, if you kill it, I'm fucking jacked up when you killed her. It's just like me killing a deer, vice versa.
Exactly.
But when you get in these bigger parties, there are segments of groups of people in there, right?
They want to kill the big deer.
Yeah.
And there's 8 or 10 of them.
Yeah.
And that gets tricky.
It gets real tricky.
And I have a question kind of on here about that. Does the answer to your question change based on permission and based on like public versus private ground? Because right now, outside of a trespasser, we know that nobody can legally hunt the ground that we hunt.
Right.
We know that.
Right.
So the information that, you know, shares between you and me, our wives may see, maybe Matt and Jesse may see, maybe Cody and Homie, but that's about it. Really, nobody else sees that information. But that answer does change if you're not the only one with permission on that farm. And, you know, if it's public ground spot where
I think if it's public, it's gloves are off. I'm not sharing anything.
Yeah.
Because there are no neighbors in public.
Sure. Or conversely looking at it, everyone's your neighbor.
Well, not even that. Like, to me, a neighbor has a line that they can't cross.
Sure.
If you share your picture with the quote unquote neighbor,
they're your spouse. They're living in the house with you.
He can come across his private property and hunt the public ground that you just, you know what I mean? So like,
exactly. Yeah.
I feel like there is where you got to really keep things close to your and just be tight-lipped and do your thing and go about it, you know. And that's coming from a guy that has little experience with public ground, and the only experience I do have was negative. So my years of Wisconsin hunting public ground were torturous, but that's neither here nor there. It's a different topic in a conversation.
Okay, let's take a little break. So our media break schedule for the week, we're going to start doing this in the middle of our podcast, especially as we make the run down the chute here every Monday. We're going to lay out all the stuff that we have coming up this week. So lots of stuff has happened in the last week, namely Homie's opening day buck. He shot a buck on public on Friday here in our home state of Illinois. That hunt is up on our YouTube channel right now. Today is Monday, October 4th. So 2 days ago, we put that up on our YouTube channel. Today, the bear hunt from Colorado, your bear hunt, the Last Breath Live episode will be up at 7 p.m. tonight on Monday. Yesterday, I skipped a day, sorry about that. The One That Got Away series intro. Cody and Homie went over their hunt and their experience hunting Magnum for 2 years, having 2 years worth of encounters with him, what they learned, how they think they messed up, and that's a great series that they're doing, and that will be on our YouTube channel every single Sunday for the next 8 weeks. So this week it was the introduction to the series and talking all about Magnum, an absolute giant that they were chasing around on Illinois Public. Jesse's interview. So if you're wanting to get to know us on more of a deep level, Jesse's interview is dropping on Friday the 8th at 7 p.m. And that is right before we show you the first episode of deer season. That's right. Saturday morning at 7:45 a.m. That'd be, what would Saturday morning be, like the 8th?
I think
8th,
potentially.
9th.
7th.
well, let me see. Yeah, it'd be the 9th.
Yep.
So Matt and Jesse killed their 6th buck off the ground last year with no blind. It's a deer that they call Raphael, and we are going to be premiering that at 7:45 a.m. on our YouTube channel. Again, that's coming on Saturday morning, the very first episode of our deer season. If you want to be entered in the chance to win a brand new Outdoor Edge knife, drop us a comment and answer the question at the end of the video. And then a week from Sunday, that'll be October 10th. The One That Got Away series is back.
Today.
Yeah, the one that. Oh yeah, shoot, you're right. The One That Got Away series is back, and our first guest, Cody and Homie's first guest, rather, is Scott Buckley from Iowa. So that's going to be really good. So we've got lots of stuff. Go check out that public land buck that Homie killed on opening day, and we've got lots of stuff. Anything that comes out during the weekday is going to be at 7 p.m. Anything that comes out during the weekend is going to be at 7:45 a.m. So check that out, and let's go ahead and get right back into the Huntroversy. So my next question is, does it matter who the neighbor is for you? Let me paint a picture. I know that if I'm driving my truck to park and you and I are getting out to hunt, I know that if Matt Bartlett is my neighbor and he's hunting, the adjacent property, a trail camera picture can't really determine whether or not he's going to hunt or not. But I know that like certain people, certain neighbors are only going in there if there's a big deer. Like if Don Higgins, for example, like Don Higgins doesn't shake his head at anything unless it's above 170. I know that if I see whoever Don Higgins' truck and whatever it looks like parked in the spot next door, parked in the gate hole in the property adjacent to mine, that I'm like, damn, there's a big deer in there. Now all of a sudden I'm starting to... You don't even
need a trail camera picture.
Right. You don't even need a trail camera picture. So people like that are on that level, that are just very elite hunters, very good at what they do, have killed a lot of big bucks, know how to kill big bucks consistently, versus someone who is younger, maybe doesn't have the same goals, maybe would love to shoot a 2 or 3 year old buck, or just a buck in general. Does that influence your decision to share a picture with them or not?
It does not, and here's why. Because my neighbor is somebody of the caliber of Don Higgins or Matt Bartlett or Clark Cummings, again, my solitary trail camera picture of the deer is not going to impact their ability to kill him, because somebody at that level, somebody that's that good of a hunter, I think, is either got him already figured out or is hunting a different deer or whatever,
sure,
something else. And then talking about somebody that's maybe not quite as seasoned, that has a lot different goals than a guy like Clark Cummings or Don Higgins. Again, I don't think that my photo is going to influence what they harvest, and I don't think it really should necessarily. Like your goals going into season should be your goals going into season. Can they adapt throughout the season? Of course they can, absolutely.
Yep.
But with Illinois being a 2-buck state, and just the way that I think people are, I've said it before. I don't want anybody, especially like, let's say if we have kids,
right.
I don't want my kids to miss that stage of like progressing,
just killing the shit out of stuff.
Yeah, to get up into the big deer, and I don't want, if my neighbor's not in that stage of hunting yet, I don't want to force their hand into that either.
Sure.
So again, I go
back to
that. So you'd
want to afford them the common courtesy is that they would hope would be afforded to your future child. You shoot what you want, so that way in the future, my kid, he's going to shoot what he wants.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I'm going to afford you the same courtesy kind of thing.
Yeah, and again, I don't know if a trail camera picture is going to influence them. It could,
more
but
than likely, a person like that's very experienced is already going to know about the deer anyway.
Yep, 100%. They're already got their plan. They already got the stage set, just as we would. You know what I mean? And then, like I said, the not so seasoned hunter is going out with different goals in mind because they're not quite as seasoned. Maybe they're just wanting to get their numbers up, kill more deer this year. Maybe they're wanting to kill a 10-point instead of an 8-point. Yeah. Maybe they're wanting to kill a 4-year-old because they've never killed a deer that mature yet. I think about the goals that we have set for ourselves and over the past 12 years, even though we've been hunting for much longer than that. But the last 12 years, it seems like we started to set goals, right?
Yep.
It was X amount of deer, and then it was this many archery deer, and then it was an archery buck, and then it kind of progressed. And like I said, you have that evolution of hunting to get to where, wherever that mindset may be.
Yep.
So, yeah, I don't know.
Okay. I agree with you about the outcome of the deer. Like, more than likely, the person's already going to have their mind made up, is basically the gist of your point. The experienced guy is going to already know about the deer. He's going to already have made plans for the deer.
Yep.
The inexperienced hunter, realistically, if they're inexperienced and if they're in a crunch time scenario, they're probably going to shoot the deer anyway. So it doesn't really matter.
You know that, I mean, yeah, and I almost feel bad saying inexperienced or less seasoned, or, you know.
I wouldn't. We were there too. I mean, shit, we've done a shitload of stuff wrong, you know.
Oh yeah.
Still continue.
Yeah.
To F up.
We make mistakes every year.
And so you know, I totally understand that. Next one. Now we kind of touched on this a little earlier. My question for you this time is, does it matter what the deer is? Whether or not we're talking megalodon giant versus solid buck. You know, you and I, every year we get a lot of solid bucks, and to actually think about it, we don't have a whole lot of deer. You know, we've probably only had 3 deer that I can recall that we've ever hunted that were giant deer. Yeah. We've killed one of them. Mm-hmm. We had an encounter with another one. Then another one got away. Didn't get an opportunity at that one. So does that influence your decision at all, whether or not it's a huge deer versus a solid buck, you know, like your 140s, 150s deer versus your 170 and up deer? Does that influence whether or not you'll share?
I mean, honestly, I think it does have a factor into it. Should it? No, I don't think. Because again, I mean, that deer is at least 4. He's one of the harder deer to kill, if not one of the hardest deer to kill. You know, if we're talking about a deer of that caliber.
Yep.
Should it affect you sharing him? Probably not. Will it? Yes. I mean, it will. Being honest with you, it's going to affect what you want to share about, you know, with them. Sure. And I think, again, the most dangerous aspect of sharing trail camera photos, specifically with your neighbor or even your hunting party, is fueling the fire, fueling the desire.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like saying, hey, the annual Easter egg hunt's here. Like, the adults probably aren't going to go Easter egg hunt for M&Ms and Starbursts. But if the person putting on the Easter egg hunt goes, we put $100 bill in one of the eggs,
right.
You might have some of the older kids start playing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's a good point.
That's where I'm getting at. You have the ability to now spark the interest. People now want to, your neighbors or your family party or whoever, now they got the gumption to go. Right. And how long set that is, I don't know. They might hunt 3 or 4 times and be like, this is a waste of fucking time. This deer's a ghost. You know?
Right.
Or they might be like,
I'm
just like you said,
for the long haul,
Grant and Garrett are hunting today, and they showed me a picture of that big deer, so they're in there for that deer. I'm going to be hunting.
Yep,
you know?
Exactly. What other factors? I mean, I can think of one right here. I kind of jotted it down as we were talking earlier. Talk about nighttime versus daytime. Does that have an influence on you? Because for me, that's a big tell. Like, that's a big, like, I'm probably going to get a good opportunity to kill this deer. Whether or not I F it up is on me, but if you've got a daylight picture of a deer, you know, like in the case of Homie, we were talking about the public land opening day buck. You know, this deer had daylighted 16 out of 19 days or something.
That's crazy.
Dumb.
So crazy.
You know, it's crazy amount of days in the daylight. It was great that he killed him. But if somebody else knew that, would that have influenced his hunt? You
on
know
public ground,
on
potentially.
Public?
But I'm just going to say this. Like, let's just hypothetically
daylight
speaking,
versus dark.
I know. I'm saying, let's say Homie's deer on public was on private. Right?
Yep.
Is if, you know, Homie's deer is bedding. I mean, he probably killed his deer less than 100 yards from his bed.
Yeah.
Given the time, you know, 120 maybe. But it's like, okay, if your neighbor has one picture of this deer that's daylighting, they're either going to hunt so close that they don't have a chance of that deer because they're going to bump him, you know, or that deer's on you and there's whatever
nothing they can do about it anyway.
I would say, you know, like, just again, being honest with the listeners, if I'm going to share a picture of a deer, it'd probably be at nighttime. I think nighttime pictures typically are a little bit easier to see what the deer is anyway, just because you have that stark contrast of the antlers
being white and the darkness being black. Yeah.
But, and you also have the ability to cover up any of those physical features that you don't want to share, like topography, landscape, structure, etc.
Yep.
You know, but that's neither here nor there. Again, going back to it, I don't know if we got one picture from, you know, Mike that is a daylight photo of a deer, is that going to affect our ability to kill it in the season? One picture is it's not much to go off of other than we know that he's got a picture of him and that the deer exists.
So let me ask you this. there's this big misconception. So I feel like we're at a really moderate stance with this where we're like, all right, I can see the benefits, I can see the drawbacks, and there are these people that are hard as hell against this. Like, do not share a picture, fuck you, fuck everyone else, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
Why do you think there's this large misconception that sharing a trail camera photo could lead to that deer being killed? Why is this like little myth, I guess, a thing? Or do you think you and I are taking it too lightly? Should we not share as much? You know what I'm saying?
It's human nature, man. it's human. I don't know. It's kind of like,
you think it's just humans are selfish?
I don't think it's selfish. You covet something and you don't want to show it off, or you don't want people to know about it, so you really hold it tight. You know, like some people are like this with their money. You know, you always you know somebody somebody knows someone who is probably very financially stable or well off, and it's like they don't flaunt it. They don't go around and show you how many zeros are in their checking account or their savings account or whatever, and they don't want people to know that they have money. And it's kind of the same way. I feel like there is a sense of saving the deer too by not showing it or expressing it, or maybe by not sharing it with your neighbors or other people, that you are kind of hopefully pulling some wool over people's eyes that you aren't hunting the deer when all reality you are. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are, I think, some advantages necessarily to not sharing them, specifically about deer that you want to kill. That's what we're referring to right now, or like the big deer, not the maybe deers,
right? Yeah.
Not the deer that you want to make another year. Like, but again, like if Matt Bartlett is hunting, he's hunting a deer that I would probably kill. If Clark Cummings is my neighbor and he's in there hunting a deer that I would kill. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Do I know exactly what deer he's hunting? No, I don't, but I have an idea because I run trail cameras too, and cell cams and mock scrapes and food plots and
right.
All the other stuff. I just feel like there's a little bit of a safety net by keeping it close to the chest, under wraps, not letting it out, that you have the ability to kind of
save the deer.
Not necessarily save the deer, but to be able to hunt him on your own
exclusively.
Accord. Yeah. Yeah.
So you think that's kind of the mentality that lots of people fall in the trap of, is if I share this, then I'm jeopardizing the deer's safety and my opportunity to hunt this deer and play chess with him one-on-one.
I think a better question would be, rather than sharing trail camera pictures like X and Y, which is just for you right now, would you rather have our camera data all to ourselves, like the end, or would you rather, let's say that like our cell cameras, right? Let's say that us and our two neighbors all of a sudden shared the same server. What we get, they can see. What they get, we can see. Which would you rather have? Where we have our own photos and they have their own photos? Or would you rather it be 100% transparency? Like when they move the camera, we can see where they move it, and like all of the pictures that they get, we can see. What would you rather have?
I mean, at the end of the day, we're out there to kill the biggest deer that we can. So I think that by having them not have that data, that you and I would be in a better position to kill a big deer. So I would rather take the non-cellular cameras and just you and I know about it.
I'm just saying cellular hypothetical. Like, would you rather that we have our, like, I'm just saying all the trail camera pictures that we get, right? They're in our little trail camera folder.
Yep.
Let's say that now every trail camera on the neighboring properties, every picture they get goes into that folder too. And they can see ours and we can see theirs. Would you rather it just be us, or would you rather it be I'm in the sense that
us.
I don't care what pictures they get. I can't hunt their property. So
Sure.
If you got a badass dynamite scrape, that's great, but it sucks for me. Right. I can't do a damn thing about it.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean?
That's a good mentality to have.
You've got a deer daylighting 16 out of 19 days. Fuck me.
You're probably going to kill that deer.
I can't do anything.
There's not shit you can do.
I can work to make my property better, so next year I'm the one with the 16 out of 19 daylight pictures.
Right.
But for that season, there's not much I can do.
Sure.
I got to go off the data that I'm getting with my cameras on the deer that I have to hunt. That's how I look at it. Like, whether I would not want to see their pictures either, because it would just my brain would be mush, because I'd be trying to figure out what the hell if they're going to do it, or like, man, if I was over there, I'd be doing this, and this, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's enough to focus on the 2 farms that we hunt.
Regardless of having data from many others.
3 times as much acreage, you know.
Yeah. That's a good point. Any other thoughts on sharing trail camera photos?
Share them with your friends and family. Be excited. Talk about it. If you want to share it with your neighbor and do it, go for it. I think it gives you an avenue to talk about. I think like I feel like the best photo that you can share with a neighbor is the deer that you say, hey, this is a really nice deer, like Hope. I just want you to know, like, if you want to kill him, totally fine, but he's getting a pass from us this year. We think he's going to be something special. That, to me, is the best type of sharing that you can do. Keep the big ones to yourself because you're going to anyway, and all the other stuff that you get goes into the trash can. But for me, like those 2, 3, 4-year-olds that you feel is like that, and you have to be a man of your word now, too. You can't be down to, like, January 10th, and now
the last day in this deer that you showed them not to shoot,
you kill because now you are a total asshat and you've completely just taken away from your word. You got to stick to your guns here, but like show it to your neighbor, and if they vow in confidence that they won't either, hey, you got some peace of mind. But if they come back and be like, man, that's the biggest deer I've ever seen, I just want you to know it's gonna be hard for me to pass him. That's when you just got to be like, all right, man, well, good luck, you know.
Yep.
Like and okay, be okay about it, because at one point in time in your life, you shot a deer that somebody else wanted to make it.
Yeah.
Almost probably guaranteed. I know I have.
100%.
Like, you know, I got one that I mounted that I wish I wouldn't have shot.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's where I come from. I think that's the best type of picture you can share. It opens up a little bit of avenue of conversation between the neighbors. As far as everything else, find your group, like we've said before. Find your gang. Share your freaking trail camera pictures, your hit list with them. Get excited, get jacked up, because that's what it's about. You want to have that group of family and friends, that list of 5 to 10 people that you call as soon as you loose an arrow or as soon as you freaking flatten a primer.
I shot fill in the blank, and they know exactly who you're talking about.
Hell yes.
Yep. Okay, so that was a good one. Mm-hmm. Getting into the next segment that we have at the end of our Huntroversies, we always do a segment called Shoot or Pass, which is similar to the Would You Rather questions that I ask at the end of our regular standard podcast, but it's time for Shoot or Pass. Are you ready?
Yeah, they're...
Okay, the first scenario, a mid 190-inch deer with one broken side.
Shoot. Oh, one broken side? Damn it. Oh, okay, never mind. Go ahead.
Shoot or pass. Shoot or pass.
Oh, 190 with half a side?
Yeah.
Pass. I thought it was going to be at 190 or something else. I'm like, at 190, you had me. But
okay,
it would just be really hard to, like, a whole half rack.
The inability for us to answer this question with like yes or no, it makes me feel a little bit bad. It makes me feel like we're getting to that point where it's not.
Oh, I'm passing him. I'm already saying I'm passing him.
Yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Trophy hunting.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't necessarily like being called.
I don't care if it's a 190, 170, 200. Like I'm passing. It just
sure.
Tines are one thing. A whole half gone is like.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Your second question. A buck on your first day of a 7-day out-of-state hunt. It's slightly above your standard. So let's say your standard, for all intents and purposes, a 4-year-old buck that you think as an 8 would go about 140 and as a 10 would go about 145, 150.
Yeah, I'm shooting him.
You would shoot him on day 1?
Yes.
Slightly above standard, you would shoot.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, what about at standard?
Like
day 1, first day.
Whitetail hunt.
Yeah, whitetail.
Out of state.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in the situation too many times where it comes down to the last day or two, and I hate that feeling of an out-of-state hunt. I mean,
yep.
You need to ask yourself, are you going on this hunt, whether it's out of state or whatever, are you going there specifically for whitetails? I probably wouldn't be going on an out-of-state hunt to try to shoot the biggest deer I could. I'd be going on a hunt to shoot a deer of I'm just trying to think about it. Realistic expectations. If I set a bar and he's at that, why wouldn't I shoot that? If he's at what you were saying, that bar.
The gist of the question is just the fantasy of what could come in the days 2 through 7.
Absolutely,
really,
I get it. But you're saying he's right at the par.
Yeah, right at par.
That's what par is.
Standard you're shooting. Okay, what about a substandard, but he's right there? So like a deer that's about
short tine 10. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something I wouldn't shoot at home. No, I'm not going to shoot out of state.
okay.
On the first day.
On the first day.
Yeah.
A buck, is 3. Has huge antlers. All of your neighbors have vowed that they are 100% going to shoot this deer if they have a chance. Kind of getting into our topic that we just discussed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what are you going to do? Shoot or pass?
Holy moly, that is a tough one.
We arguably have this situation right
With
now.
hope.
We've kind of got a deer that you're right, with hope, right? Kind of same situation, but he's 4. He's got a good rack. I don't know I really haven't talked to him with our neighbors
it depends.
yet.
It depends.
But
It depends.
He's a nice deer.
You're
Oh, yeah,
saying,
he's a nice deer.
I'm talking about, like, Hope I will not shoot.
No.
But I feel like Hope is in a different category than this 3-year-old with really big antlers.
Let's say it's a 160. Like, you're like, man, he made a really big jump. There's a characteristic that you can identify, like he's got the same little inside dagger point as he did when he was 2.
I'm going to say off the cuff,
But they
I'm
say
not
they're
going to
gonna-
shoot him.
Why?
Because I'm going to hopefully have a different deer that's going to be...
Tripping your trigger?
Yeah, and the other reason is, I mean, there's so
If
many
you kill him, he's
factors.
not getting any older.
It's guaranteed, right? I don't know. I guess 160-inch deer is a freaking fantastic whitetail.
Yeah, it's a big-ass buck.
But I would hope that I would have a deer that's more mature, that's going to give me just as much excitement and joy to kill. That'd be like, all right, dude, stay frosty, you little 3-year-old son of a bitch.
I hope you spend a lot of time over here and stay safe.
Yep.
A deer who is missing 1 G2.
That's all I get?
They're just missing 1 G2. Yeah, it's a target buck, but it's missing 1 G2.
Ooh.
It's a target buck, though.
I'm probably going to shoot. I'm going to shoot. Wayne and Michael they do fantastic jobs on antler recreations, and 1 tine missing. I know the G2 is probably one of the bigger tines, but I'm
The biggest tine.
Yeah.
Other than your main beam. Okay. How about this one? An out-of-state deer, 138 specifically, 138 in full velvet with your bow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shooting.
Okay. That rounds us out then.
Yeah.
Pretty much to the end. So a couple different things before we jump off here. If you have not yet gotten to the Last Breath Inner Circle, that's our Facebook group. We're putting all the kills that we get this year into that first. As soon as it happens on our end, we're going to let you know. So that's our Facebook group. It's again called the Last Breath Inner Circle, and that's where our Badlands code resides. That's who it's for. So if you're interested in that, hop in there. Thank you for everyone who clicked play and listened. We've been noticing a big uptick in subscribers on YouTube, so thank you for those of you guys that are jumping on the bandwagon. Thank you guys for listening to our podcast, because our numbers are really good right now. Any other things to add?
Yeah, if you stuck it out to the very end, today is Sunday the 3rd. Cody and Homie are going in after another daylight buck, and you heard it here first. So treat to you, boys and girls, if you stuck around to the very end. They have got a deer, a buck, a very nice deer, that's daylighting again. Incredibly consistency on a Whitetail Institute plot. Cody and Homie are in the stand as we speak. It is overcast, quite a bit cooler than the forecast predicted.
70 degrees.
And I have a suspicion that those two will have another deer dead by the end of the night.
Okay. Knock on wood. Hopefully they do.
Yep.
All right. We'll see you guys next Monday for a brand new episode right here, episode 117. Thanks for listening to the Last Breath Huntcast. Don't waste it.